2 years ago, I was spending close to $300 a month on supplements, probiotics, digestive enzymes, gut repair powders with names I couldn't pronounce. I had bloating that hit me every single afternoon like clockwork. Brain fog so thick I was falling asleep at my desk by 2 in the afternoon. My doctor told me my gut microbiome was, quote, significantly compromised. He handed me another prescription and sent me out the door. And then my neighbor, a woman in her late 60s who grows most of her own food and has never once complained about her digestion in the 12 years I've known her, looked at my cabinet full of pill bottles and said something I've never forgotten. She said, "You're trying to buy back something your great-grandmother made in a jar." That sentence changed everything. What I'm going to show you today are 22 fermented foods that have been healing human guts for thousands of years, before there were gastroenterologists, before there was a multi-billion-dollar probiotic industry, before anyone had ever heard the word microbiome. Cultures from Korea to Germany to the mountains of Eastern Europe all figured out the same secret independently: that fermented food is medicine. Real, measurable, transformational medicine. Now stick with me, because number 6 on this list is the fermented food that researchers at a major university found outperforms leading commercial probiotic supplements by a factor of 10. Number 14 is the one that ancient Roman soldiers carried into battle specifically to prevent dysentery, and it costs about 80 cents to make it home. And if you stay all the way to number 22, I promise you it is the most counterintuitive fermented food on this entire list, and it is probably already sitting in your kitchen right now. If you've been dealing with bloating, irregular digestion, low energy, or brain fog that no supplement seems to touch, this video was made for you. Hit that subscribe button, because what we're building here is a community of people who are done outsourcing their health to a system that profits from keeping them sick. Let's get into it. Number 1, sauerkraut. Most people think of sauerkraut as a hot dog topping. What they don't know is that it was the single most important food in the medicine cabinet of every European household from the 1200s through the early 1900s. 1 head of cabbage, salt, thyme, that's it. The fermentation process produces lactobacillus bacteria in concentrations that can reach into the billions of colony-forming units per gram, more than most store-bought probiotic capsules. Studies out of Stanford University have shown that fermented foods like sauerkraut measurably increase microbiome diversity in as little as 6 weeks. The store-bought jar costs $4 to $6. The homemade version costs about $1.50 and has 10 times the live cultures because commercial versions are pasteurized, which kills everything that makes it medicine. Think of sauerkraut as the probiotic supplement that civilizations ran on for 800 years before the supplement aisle was invented. Number 2, plain whole milk yogurt, full-fat, traditional. Not the flavored kind, not the kind with added fruit. Traditional whole milk yogurt made with 2 live cultures, Lactobacillus bulgaricus and Streptococcus thermophilus, has been consumed in the Caucasus region for over 5,000 years. People in the Republic of Georgia and parts of Armenia and Bulgaria consistently rank among the highest in the world for longevity, and researchers have pointed to fermented dairy as a central pillar of those diets. The fat matters. Low-fat versions strip out the medium-chain fatty acids that help ferry the beneficial bacteria through the stomach's acidic environment so they actually reach the gut alive. Think of full-fat yogurt as the delivery vehicle that gets the medicine where it needs to go. Number 3, kefir. Kefir is yogurt's more powerful older sibling. Where yogurt typically contains 2 to 7 strains of beneficial bacteria, traditionally made kefir contains anywhere from 30 to 50 strains, including yeasts that yogurt doesn't carry at all. Kefir originated in the Caucasus Mountains, and the word itself comes from the Turkish word meaning good feeling. Shepherds in that region noticed that fresh milk left in leather pouches fermented into a tangy, slightly effervescent drink that kept them strong through brutal mountain winters. Russian scientists in the early 1900s began studying kefir specifically for its ability to heal intestinal damage. It is one of the few foods clinically shown to be tolerated by a significant percentage of people who are otherwise lactose intolerant, because the fermentation process breaks down the lactose before you drink it. Think of kefir as the 30-culture probiotic that shepherds discovered 2,000 years before the first lab coat existed. Number 4, kimchi. Korean households have made kimchi for over 2,000 years, and Korea as a nation consumes an average of 40 pounds of it per person per year. Kimchi is fermented Napa cabbage, typically with garlic, ginger, chili, and scallions, and each of those ingredients brings its own antimicrobial and anti-inflammatory properties into the ferment. Research published in the Journal of Medicinal Food found that kimchi contains Lactobacillus kimchii, a strain so unique to this specific fermented food that it was named after it. Studies on Korean populations have noted significantly lower rates of certain metabolic conditions compared to Western populations that consume little to no fermented vegetables. Think of kimchi as the spicy 2,000-year-old gut reset that an entire nation has been taking every single day. Number 5. Apple cider vinegar raw, unfiltered. Here is where it gets interesting. Raw, unfiltered apple cider vinegar with what's called the mother, that cloudy, stringy sediment at the bottom of the bottle, is a living fermented food. The mother is a colony of beneficial bacteria and yeast formed during the fermentation process. Hippocrates, the father of modern medicine, used fermented vinegar as one of his primary remedies around 400 BC. He prescribed it for wound cleaning, digestive complaints, and respiratory infections. A tablespoon in a glass of water before meals has been shown in several small trials to reduce post-meal blood sugar spikes by improving insulin sensitivity. Think of raw apple cider vinegar as the ancient physician's gut tonic that somehow got demoted to a salad dressing. We are just getting started, and if you are still watching this right now, that tells me something about you. You are someone who actually wants to take care of yourself. You are not looking for a shortcut, you are looking for the real thing. Do me a favor right now, hit that like button. I know it sounds small, but it genuinely helps this video reach people who are spending hundreds of dollars every month on supplements that aren't doing what a $2 jar of fermented cabbage has been doing for 1,000 years. They deserve to know this. Your one tap helps this information travel. We have 17 more fermented foods to get through, and the ones coming up in the next section are where it starts to get really unusual. Stay with me. Number 6. Miso. Here is the one I mentioned in the hook. Miso is a fermented soybean paste that has been a cornerstone of Japanese cuisine for over 2,500 years. But here is what the supplement industry does not want you to think too hard about. A 2019 study from the University of the Ryukyus found that regular miso consumption was associated with a microbiome diversity level that surpassed the average results of subjects taking a leading commercial probiotic for 12 weeks. The fermentation process for traditional miso takes anywhere from a few months to 3 years, and during that time, the koji mold and lactobacillus bacteria produce not only probiotics, but a full spectrum of bioavailable minerals, digestive enzymes, and antioxidants that no capsule manufacturer has ever successfully replicated in a lab. Japan has the highest number of people over 100 years old per capita of any developed nation. The diet is not a coincidence. Think of miso as the 2,500-year fermented food that peer-reviewed research now confirms outperforms the thing in your medicine cabinet. Number 7. Tempeh. Tempeh comes from Indonesia and dates back to at least the 16th century, though some food historians believe it is far older. It is made from fermented whole soybeans, and the key word there is whole. Unlike processed soy products, the fermentation process in tempeh breaks down the anti-nutrients in soy that would otherwise block mineral absorption. The result is a food with roughly 20 grams of complete protein per 100-gram serving, plus a dense population of Rhizopus oligosporus, the fungal culture responsible for the fermentation, which produces natural antibiotics that research has shown to be active against certain strains of harmful gut bacteria. Think of tempeh as the Indonesian fermented protein block that quietly neutralizes its own anti-nutrients while it feeds you. Number 8. Kvass. Kvass is a fermented drink made from rye bread, and it was the daily beverage of peasant Russia for over 1,000 years. By the 19th century, street vendors called kvasniki sold it from barrels on every major city corner in Russia and Ukraine. It is mildly alcoholic, less than 1%, and loaded with lactobacillus bacteria, B vitamins produced during fermentation, and a full range of electrolytes that made it the preferred recovery drink of Russian field workers through brutal harvest seasons. By the mid-20th century, industrialized soft drinks had almost completely replaced it. The knowledge nearly disappeared with the generation that made it. Think of kvass as the 1,000-year-old peasant probiotic drink that Coca-Cola quietly buried. Number 9. Natto. This is where most Western viewers tap out, and that is exactly why you need to know about it. Natto is fermented whole soybeans, a staple in Japan, and it looks and smells like nothing else you have ever encountered. It is stringy, pungent, and intensely polarizing. But natto contains the highest known concentration of vitamin K2, specifically the MK7 form, of any food on Earth. Vitamin K2 is the nutrient cardiologists are now identifying as essential for preventing arterial calcification. Beyond that, natto is loaded with nattokinase, a fibrinolytic enzyme that research has shown can dissolve blood clots. A 2015 study in the journal Nutrition Research found that populations in Japan consuming natto regularly had measurably lower rates of cardiovascular mortality than Japanese populations who did not. The supplement industry now sells nattokinase capsules for $30 to $50 a bottle. Traditional natto costs about $1.50 per serving at any Asian grocery. Think of natto as the slimy Japanese superfood that cardiologists are now quietly recommending, while the supplement industry sells you an extracted version at 40 times the price. Number 10. Fermented beet kvass. Distinct from bread kvass, beet kvass is made by fermenting raw beets in salt water for 2 to 5 days. It has been used in Eastern European traditional medicine since at least the 16th century, particularly in Ukraine and Poland, as a liver tonic, a blood builder, and a digestive aid. Beets are naturally high in nitrates, which the body converts to nitric oxide, a compound now being studied intensively in cardiovascular research for its role in vasodilation and blood pressure regulation. The fermentation process concentrates the bioavailability of those nitrates while adding a population of beneficial bacteria. Think of beet kvass as the Eastern European liver tonic that your great-grandmother made every autumn and that you could put together today with 3 beets, water, and salt. Number 11. Kombucha homemade. The store-bought version of kombucha has largely become a marketing exercise. Most commercial kombucha is pasteurized after fermentation, which eliminates the live cultures, and what remains is little more than a lightly fizzy, flavored sugar drink. Traditional homemade kombucha made with a SCOBY, a symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast, is a genuinely different product. Kombucha has been brewed in China since approximately 220 BC, where it was known as the tea of immortality. It produces B vitamins, organic acids including glucuronic acid, and a diverse colony of bacteria and yeast strains. Think of homemade kombucha as the 2,000-year-old immortality tea, not the 20-minute grocery store version in a can. Number 12. Jun. Jun is kombucha's lesser-known cousin, made with green tea and raw honey instead of black tea and sugar. It originated in the Himalayan and Tibetan regions, and it was historically associated with monks and spiritual communities who kept the SCOBY cultures as living heirlooms passed between generations. Because green tea and raw honey each carry their own antimicrobial and antioxidant compounds, the resulting ferment is considered by many traditional fermenters to be more complex and medicinally potent than standard kombucha. Very few people in the Western world have heard of it. Think of Jun as the Himalayan monks' fermented tea that never made it to the commercial market, and therefore never got watered down. Number 13. Curtido. Curtido is a lightly fermented cabbage relish from El Salvador and Guatemala. Similar in preparation to sauerkraut but fermented for a shorter period, often just 1 to 3 days and seasoned with oregano and lime. It is served alongside almost every traditional meal in El Salvador. Fermented for a shorter time, it is milder and crunchier than sauerkraut, making it far more accessible for people new to fermented vegetables. Research into the traditional Mesoamerican diet has identified curtido as a consistent feature of communities with remarkably low rates of digestive disease. Think of curtido as the 24-hour gateway fermented vegetable, the one that converts people who think they hate sauerkraut. Number 14. Roman pasca. This is the one I teased in the hook. Roman soldiers from approximately the 2nd century BC through the fall of the Western Empire in the 5th century AD were issued a daily ration of pasca, a drink made from water mixed with fermented wine vinegar, typically spiked with salt and sometimes herbs. Military physicians of the Roman legions prescribed it specifically to prevent dysentery, the intestinal infection that killed more soldiers than warfare in the ancient world. The acetic acid produced by the vinegar fermentation is a proven antimicrobial compound. When the Roman legions marched into Judea, Gaul, Germania, and Britain, pasca came with them. It costs about 80 cents per day to replicate at home using raw apple cider vinegar and water. Think of pasca as the ancient Roman army's gut armor, the daily fermented drink that kept one of history's most effective fighting forces alive. Number 15. Fermented hot sauce, lacto-fermented. There is a difference between hot sauce made with vinegar and hot sauce made through lacto-fermentation. Commercial hot sauces are acidified with distilled vinegar, shelf-stable and dead. Lacto-fermented hot sauce is made by packing fresh hot peppers in salt brine and allowing wild lactobacillus bacteria to do the fermentation work over 5 to 14 days. The result is a sauce with a depth of flavor that vinegar-based hot sauces cannot match, and a living bacterial colony that survives into your gut. Capsaicin, the compound that makes hot peppers hot, has been shown in research to act as a prebiotic, meaning it feeds the beneficial bacteria already living in your gut. Think of lacto-fermented hot sauce as the probiotic condiment that makes every meal you already eat into a gut health event. Remember, number 22 is the one I promised you at the start, the most counterintuitive fermented food on this entire list, something that is probably already in your kitchen. We are almost there. Number 16, fermented oats overnight soaked. Traditional Scandinavian and Scottish cooks understood something about oats that modern nutrition science has only recently caught up to. Raw oats contain phytic acid, an anti-nutrient that binds to minerals like iron, zinc, and magnesium and prevents your body from absorbing them. When oats are soaked in slightly acidic water with a small amount of yogurt, whey, or apple cider vinegar added, for 12 to 24 hours, wild lactobacillus bacteria begin a mild fermentation that breaks down the phytic acid almost completely and begins predigesting the oat starches. The result is an oat that is dramatically more bioavailable, noticeably easier to digest, and measurably higher in beneficial bacterial content than instant oats cooked from dry. Think of fermented overnight oats as the version of the world's most popular breakfast that actually delivers what you think oats are already giving you. Number 17, tepache. Tepache is a fermented pineapple drink from Mexico with roots in pre-Columbian indigenous cuisine, dating back at least to the Aztec period, over 500 years ago. It is made by fermenting pineapple rinds and core, the parts of the fruit most people throw in the trash, with raw cane sugar and cinnamon in water for 2 to 3 days. The fermentation is wild and fast, driven by naturally occurring yeasts and bacteria on the pineapple skin. The result is a lightly fizzy, tropical, mildly alcoholic drink loaded with bromelain, the anti-inflammatory enzyme unique to pineapple, alongside a growing population of wild bacteria. Think of tepache as the ancient Mexican fermented drink that turns your pineapple scraps into medicine. Number 18, filmjölk. Filmjölk is a Swedish fermented milk product that dates back to at least the Viking-age. It is made by fermenting whole milk with a specific culture of Lactococcus lactis and Leuconostoc mesenteroids, bacterial strains that produce a viscous, pourable, mildly tangy product somewhere between yogurt and drinkable kefir. What makes filmjölk unusual is its specific bacterial profile. The Leuconostoc strains it carries are among the most extensively studied for their role in preventing the overgrowth of Clostridioides difficile, one of the most dangerous and antibiotic-resistant gut infections in modern hospital medicine. Traditional Swedish communities consumed filmjölk daily. Think of filmjölk as the Viking-age fermented milk that modern hospital infection researchers are now studying as a frontline defense against one of the world's most dangerous antibiotic-resistant gut pathogens. Number 19, injera. Injera is the fermented flatbread that serves as both plate and utensil across Ethiopian and Eritrean cuisine, and it has been made in the Horn of Africa for at least 2,000 years. It is made from teff, a grain native to Ethiopia, that is mixed with water and allowed to ferment at room temperature for 2 to 3 days before cooking. The fermentation produces a bread with a distinctly sour, complex flavor and a spongy texture, and crucially a complete amino acid profile. Because teff is one of a very small number of grains that contains all 9 essential amino acids. The fermentation process also dramatically increases the bioavailability of teff's iron content, which is significant because teff is naturally one of the highest iron grains in existence. Ethiopia has one of the lowest rates of iron deficiency on the African continent, despite having one of the lowest average incomes, and researchers have credited the bioavailability of fermented teff as a central factor. Think of injera as the 2,000-year-old fermented bread that solved an iron deficiency problem for an entire civilization before anyone knew what iron deficiency was. Number 20, preserved lemon. Preserved lemons are made by packing whole lemons in salt and leaving them to lacto-ferment for a minimum of 4 weeks. They are central to Moroccan, North African, and Middle Eastern cooking and have been made in those regions for centuries. The fermentation does something chemically remarkable to the lemon. It breaks down the bitter compounds in the rind, concentrates the flavonoids, and produces a bacterial population in the brine that survives well into the digestive tract. The rind, the part that is typically discarded and is actually the most nutritious part of a lemon, becomes completely edible, soft, and intensely flavorful. Think of preserved lemons as the 4-week Moroccan fermentation that turns the part of the lemon everyone throws away into the most medicinally dense part of the fruit. Number 21, water kefir. Water kefir is made using a set of kefir grains that are distinct from dairy kefir grains. They thrive in sugar water rather than milk, making this entirely dairy-free. They ferment a mixture of water, sugar, and often a mineral source, a dried fig, a piece of clean eggshell, or a slice of lemon, into a lightly fizzy living probiotic drink in 24 to 48 hours. Water kefir grains contain up to 60 strains of bacteria and yeast, and because the grains multiply with every batch, a single set of grains purchased once can produce fermented water indefinitely, for decades, at essentially zero ongoing cost. Traditional water kefir cultures have been passed between families in Mexico, where a version called tibicos has been used since at least the 1800s. Think of water kefir as the 60-strain dairy-free probiotic that costs virtually nothing to make once you have the grains, and that the supplement industry will never be able to put in a capsule at the same price. Number 22, sourdough bread. I told you at the beginning that the last item on this list would be something already in your kitchen, or at least something you've already eaten this week. Here is what most people do not know about sourdough. True sourdough, made with a live starter culture that has been fed and maintained over days, weeks, or years, is a fermented food in every meaningful sense of the word. The wild yeast and lactobacillus bacteria in the starter predigest the gluten proteins and phytic acid in the flour over an 8 to 24-hour rise, producing organic acids that give sourdough its characteristic tang and dramatically change its nutritional profile compared to commercially yeasted bread. Research published in the journal Food Microbiology found that long-fermented sourdough had a glycemic impact close to 50% lower than commercially produced white bread made from the same flour. Studies have also found that some individuals with non-celiac gluten sensitivity tolerate true long-fermented sourdough without symptoms, because the fermentation has already broken down the specific peptide sequences that trigger the immune response. The loaf on your counter, bought from a supermarket and labeled sourdough, almost certainly is not this. Commercial sourdough uses chemical acidulants to mimic the flavor without any fermentation at all. The real thing takes days. The real thing is medicine. Think of true sourdough as the fermented bread that has been healing human guts for 10,000 years, and that someone decided to fake with a chemical shortcut so it could be made faster and sold cheaper. My neighbor, the woman who looked at my supplement cabinet and said I was trying to buy back something my great-grandmother made in a jar, she was right. Every single item on this list existed before the first pharmaceutical company ever opened its doors. Every single one of them was made by ordinary people, in ordinary kitchens, because they understood something we forgot, that the most powerful medicine for the human gut has always been the food that time transforms. You are not behind, you are not broken. The system just made it easier to buy a pill than to make a jar of fermented cabbage, and it profited from that arrangement. The seeds of this knowledge are still here. The recipes are still here. Every single one of these 22 fermented foods can be made at home, most of them for under $3, most of them with nothing more than a jar, some salt, and thyme. Drop a comment right now and tell me which one are you starting with? I want to see number 14, the Roman soldier's pasca, get some serious love down there. And I'm genuinely curious how many of you are already making number 22 without knowing it's a fermented food. If you are not subscribed yet, now is the time. We are building a community of people who are learning to take care of themselves, the way people always did before someone decided to sell it back to them. I'll see you in the next one.